Tonight, more details about the alleged hate-motivated assault at a TTC station that saw a man get struck in the head.
As well as his head dressing, which we have identified as a turban, to fall off.
Police still searching for the suspect as the city considers ways to make the system safer in light of all the recent violence. Plus,
and a lot of small businesses are owned by families, and this is what puts bread on their table.
And with many still struggling, the city announcing today millions of dollars in grants to help them bounce back. And
we're waiting with open arms and jobs to fill.
The Ford government is hoping to attract healthcare workers from outside the province with new legislation that will allow them to start working right away. But critics say they are neglecting one big roadblock. Good evening, I'm Kelda Yoon. We're learning new details and getting more reaction today after a man was struck and injured at a TTC station in what Toronto police are calling a hate-motivated attack. It happened yesterday at the Bloor-Yonge subway station. Police still searching for a suspect tonight and appealing to the public for information. Greg Ross has more.
9-1, Fort Finch.
It was during the morning rush yesterday at the busy Bloor-Yonge station. According to police, a commuter was the victim of an unprovoked attack.
A man that was in the area on TTC property was struck in the head, causing the individual to sustain injury, as well as his head dressing, which we have identified as a turban, to fall off.
Police have released this image of a suspect in the attack. They say after assaulting the victim, he then verbally berated the man using hate speech.
The TTC is a place where people should expect to be safe.
Mayor Tory says this is unacceptable.
Those kinds of acts taking place in our city are so contrary to the values of Torontonians who believe that we've gained, as we have as a city, immensely from the fact that people of every faith, every sexual identity, every culture, every language, every skin color have come here and know they can be embraced here and can prosper here.
This is just the latest in what has been a string of recent violence at TTC stations. Just last month, 2 women were stabbed at the Hyde Park station. One of them died. In another instance, a woman was arrested after using a piece of broken glass to assault 6 other passengers. It has many feeling nervous about using the TTC.
We're scared sometimes even to stay with people. You have to, to move back.
I stand with my back against the wall all the time. All the time. I never stand close to the platform.
It's disappointing, and I don't know what to do about it.
In response to the rise in violent acts, Mayor Tory has proposed millions of dollars in funding to hire dozens of new TTC special constables. Today, the mayor said they may need to go even further than that.
I believe one of the things I might have to consider further is whether we also put some mental health professionals onto the transit system to help support people who are experiencing mental health issues.
It's also a compassionate system, and bringing people in to help those with mental health issues that are on the system, and getting people with the expertise that have a background in doing that.
Police are still searching for a suspect in yesterday's hate-motivated attack. They're asking anybody who may have witnessed something or who may have information about a potential suspect to come forward and speak with police. Greg Ross, CBC News, Toronto.
The family of a man killed in a swarming attack late last year, allegedly by a group of teenage girls, is speaking out against the justice system. In a statement released to the media by Ken Lee's brother-in-law, the family says the Youth Criminal Justice Act is flawed and it only protects the suspects rather than the victims or the public. All 8 of the accused in Lee's death are under the age of 18, so public information surrounding the case, including names of the suspects, is limited. One of the girls has been released on bail, while the others are awaiting further hearings. In their statement, the family also said Lee had a heart of gold and was a kind soul. He was stabbed to death in the early morning hours of December 18th. A female witness says Lee died while trying to protect her from the alleged attackers. A Toronto man is facing charges in the death of his mother. The investigation marking the first murder of the year in the city.
Arrested a 27-year-old Michael Rawlings, also of Toronto. That individual has been charged with second-degree murder and appeared before court today.
Officers were called to the area of Finch Avenue East and Seneca Hill Drive just after 8 o'clock last night. According to investigators, the victim was found in medical distress. Paramedics tried to revive her but were unsuccessful, and the woman died at the scene. She has been identified as 70-year-old Joy Barnwell of Toronto. A student has been arrested after allegedly being seen with a gun inside Mark Garneau Collegiate Institute. Now, this is the second time this week a person was seen with a gun in the area during school hours.
Officers attended. The school was placed into lockdown for the safety of the staff and students. An investigation was conducted and one student was taken into custody. During this event, some of the students from this school made their way to a neighboring school over at Valley Park. That resulted in that school also being placed in a hold and secure as well for the safety of those students.
Police say the lockdown and hold and secure at both schools ended shortly before 3 p.m. They were first called to Mark Garneau Collegiate when the principal says they spotted a student with a firearm. The police won't say if they recovered a weapon. Both schools were placed in a hold and secure Monday after one person was shot in the leg at a nearby park at around 1 p.m. 3 suspects are still outstanding in that case. Mayor John Tory announcing several new grants today to support local businesses. The millions of dollars in funding meant to help small business owners in the city continue bouncing back after struggling through the pandemic. Tyler Cheese has the details.
Small businesses make up 98% of the businesses in the city and account for approximately 60% of Toronto's workforce. So that's exactly by the numbers how important small business is.
Mayor John Tory announcing 3 new grants for the city's small businesses today. The $5.4 million of total funding comes from the city itself, with contributions from Metrolinx, a provincial agency, and FedDev Ontario, an economic development agency for the federal government. The 3 grants will focus on streetscape improvement, renovating vacant storefronts, and businesses affected by transit development.
It's quite thoughtful, the different grant programs that he's announced, and I think that they're targeting kind of specific needs in the city.
While Johnson welcomes the support for small businesses, he feels the grant focusing on vacant storefronts is misguided.
Commercial property owners in Toronto tend to be fairly well off and are not necessarily feeling the heat on this.
Others agree the bigger focus should be on small business owners themselves.
These type of grants are a start, but we do think that there should definitely be more direct compensation to small businesses in some form.
Funding from Metrolinx and FedDev Ontario will be used for the Transit Construction Mitigation Grant. This grant focuses on businesses affected by transit construction, especially those impacted by the ongoing Eglinton Crosstown project.
We've been under construction for 10 years, so we had 10 years of construction and a pandemic, so we've had that double whammy that we've had to endure.
She's concerned about just how far the money will go.
It's not a lot of money for the damage that's been caused to this street. We need major streetscape rehabilitation. Our sidewalks are in disastrous shape. Our roads are chewed up. There's a lot of damage that was caused.
Still, she says she's happy the city is recognizing the challenges small businesses have faced in recent years. Applications are now open for all 3 grants. Tyler Cheese, CBC News, Toronto.
Meteorologist Colette Kennedy joins us now with a first check on your forecast. And Colette, a wet and slippery one out there today to different degrees depending on the area and the region.
Yeah, exactly. As we saw the temperatures kind of changing, we had so many different types of precipitation. In fact, I mean, we still do in the province. And I know some of the freezing rain areas, and we've got freezing drizzle advisories come into play, and still seeing some of that, especially to the east of the city, and winter weather travel advisories because of where we get into some of the wet snow where it will accumulate a little bit more. So all kinds of conditions. And what we're looking at here as we go through the overnight is this next batch of moisture that comes in. A lot of it is rainfall and a lot of it falls in the Niagara region, and then kind of mixing in on the backside with some cooler air pushing in, and elsewhere we get into some of the drizzle or the wet flurries that hang around. Plus, we have to contend with the fog and reduced visibility we've been experiencing as well. Still a lot of cloud cover through the daylight hours tomorrow. Clearing comes late, so it really doesn't help things too much in that regard. The winds won't be as strong as they were today, though, so there's something to improve upon. 0 overnight tonight and tomorrow afternoon around 1 degree for that daytime high.
Thanks so much, Colette. The Ford government is hoping to attract out-of-province healthcare workers by introducing new legislation that would allow them to start work right away without any of that bureaucratic delay. Officials say the move is a first in the country and much needed at a time when many hospitals and long-term care homes are facing staffing shortages. But some worry it won't work. Lorena Redekop explains why.
Today, Premier Doug Ford made a sales pitch to healthcare workers in other parts of Canada.
If you've been thinking of making Ontario your new home, now's the time to make that move. We're here, we're waiting with open arms and jobs to fill.
He says the government will introduce legislation next month, so nurses, doctors, and other healthcare workers won't first need a separate license to practice in Ontario. His office says for nurses, they'll need to get a license within 12 months, but can work right away.
You won't have to go through any bureaucratic red tape. You arrive here with your credentials. We'll find a job immediately for you.
According to the College of Nurses, they make a decision on registering nurses from other parts of the country within 30 days of receiving a completed application. The College of Physicians and Surgeons says for doctors, it's already expedited to 5 days. The opposition doesn't see this resulting in a big healthcare worker boom, with Bill 124 still in place.
This is a government that is actually at this very moment taking healthcare workers to court to try to suppress their wages. So that doesn't sound like a great invitation to Ontario to me.
Unless we enable competitive compensation here in Ontario, nurses will not come here, and in particular, RNs will not come here.
Looking at how many are coming from other provinces now, according to the College of Nurses, as of January 1st, there were just 195 nurses from other provinces in the queue to be registered. The number of international nurses waiting was much larger, more than 6,000. The government has already made it easier for them to practice. The Ontario Medical Association wants international doctors approved to work here.
A first step would be to license those internationally trained physicians that are already here in Ontario. We do know there are many of those doctors who want to work in Ontario, but are coming up against a long bureaucratic process that could be expedited.
The government also plans to add legislation to allow healthcare staff to work outside their regular responsibilities, as long as they have the skills and judgment to do so. It's still not clear exactly what this would include. We're waiting for details on that. Lorena Redekop, CBC News, Toronto.
Welcome back. There are some big construction projects coming to the transit system this year. While the work will bring long-term gain for riders, it is going to mean some short-term pain when it comes to getting around. Ali Chiasson has details on the routes that will be impacted.
While the subway zooms along underground with the automated signal upgrades that completed last year, upgrading the streetcar system is a big focus for 2023.
We are planning or aiming for 10 capital projects. Again, capital projects are those that last more than 6 weeks, 29 full closures, and 134 nightly diversions. Pretty much every line is going to have some impact of some sort, so we look forward to the challenge.
And riders can look forward to shuttle buses and streetcar detours. If it helps, here's a show and tell from the TTC's Chief Operating Officer about why the construction is necessary.
This is a brand new rail. This is what the cross-section of the rail looks like. This is a piece of rail that we just took out of King West. So as you can see, there's a significant amount of deterioration on the head of the rail. You can also see here on the side here, just above the web, you can see there's a considerable thinness to the rail. So it becomes very, very critical when we need to come in and replace the rail.
As for which streetcars will be most affected,
let me pull up the map.
Let's go through it with Toronto transit guru Steve Monroe.
King gets whacked again in the West End.
That's for state of good repair construction. It'll take about a month starting late February.
There will be a period where Queen will be closed at Degrassi.
This construction will take about 4 months starting in July.
We're going to be both widening the bridge to 4 tracks from 3, but also at the same time actually rebuilding the bridges to raise it about 1.5 feet. The really big job is Broadview, where they're doing it because it's already overdue to be done.
That state of good repair work between Gerrard and Danforth will take about 6 months starting in May. The map doesn't mention the construction for the Ontario line that will shut down Queen and Yonge starting in the fall.
That's going to be the mother of all diversion projects because that's for like 4 years and change.
Speaking of change, what changes will the TTC make to ease riders' pain, who'll have to deal with the detours and shuttle buses? CEO Rick Leary?
But that's what I'm going to talk to staff about. What can we do better to get that information out?
Riders can grasp why the closures are necessary. They just need to reliably know when and where the shuttle bus is going to be, which the TTC will add to their enormous to-do list for 2023. Ali Chiasson, CBC News, Toronto.
Former Lieutenant Governor David Onley will be honored by the province with a state funeral on Monday. But disability advocates are urging the government to carry on his legacy in a more tangible way. He made accessibility and inclusion a central theme during his 7 years in office. And some say the government needs to get back to those ideas. Meg Roberts has more.
Come with me to Chiba Wine Bar to be disappointed because I couldn't go to the washroom.
A night out with friends derailed by the lack of accessibility.
I was told by the hostess they didn't have a portable ramp and that I would not be able to access any of the indoor areas or the washroom.
To share her experiences, Taylor Lindsay Noel created a TikTok page.
This is an Access by Tay accessibility review,
which now has more than 20,000 followers.
I think the narrative has always been that people with accessibility needs don't want to go out or we don't go out as often, but the fact of the matter is we don't go out because all of the barriers that we have to consider and think about.
She says daily tasks like getting a taxi, using public transportation, or even finding a washroom can be challenging.
There's a lot of work to be done.
It was work David Onley, the 28th Lieutenant Governor and former broadcast journalist, was doing. In 2018, he was commissioned to do an independent review on the province's accessibility legislation. But advocates say those recommendations are collecting dust.
The Ford government's record on accessibility for people with disabilities has been abysmal.
1 year ago, an independent advisory committee finalized a report to help develop education accessibility standards to tear down barriers for students.
The government has sat on those recommendations now for a year.
In 2005, Ontario became the first jurisdiction in Canada to pass a law establishing a goal and time frame for accessibility. That goal is set for 2025. Advocates aren't confident it will be met.
As it became apparent that the current government and the government before were really not enforcing, the goals of this, people took their foot off the pedal and it just became less of a priority.
The government did not answer CBC's question in relation to the 2025 deadline, progress on the education accessibility standards, or how many recommendations have been implemented. It said it's working with the disability community on job placement and said in a statement that part of the legacy of the Honorable David C. Onley can be found in our province's continued progress towards being more open and accessible.
The best way to honor David Onley's legacy is for the Ontario government, at long last, to implement the recommendations he gave them 4 years ago.
Meg Roberts, CBC News, Toronto.
It may not be 101, but a family in Quebec got a whole lot bigger after their Dalmatian Queenie gave birth to 16 puppies over the holidays. And that's double the usual litter. The family says they are helping Queenie feed the pups, and they're now looking for loving homes to adopt them. And let's go back to Colette now with a look at your extended forecast. And Colette, we've got more rain and some flurries coming through in the overnight.
Yeah, we just have so much going on, and then we get that break, and then there's another shot that's moving through. That's going to be kind of concentrated in, well, say from about Hamilton around towards St. Catharines, so through the Niagara region, but it does stretch around towards Hamilton, Burlington area too, where it's just a little more organized, but still it's not even going to last that too long, a few hours through the overnight. So we do have a variety, many areas though experiencing fog, and still some areas with freezing drizzle, as I mentioned earlier in the show, so lots to contend with there. Really hard to break through these clouds, even once we see the system moving on. So really, I'm not putting sun in the forecast, even sunny breaks tomorrow. The odd one not out of the question, but I don't expect it. Where we'd have a better chance for those will be the day after. So for Saturday, we might get some sunny breaks coming through. And then you'll see here on my headline boards, the next step will be the next system coming in on Sunday. And so that one likely bringing some light snow. And then another one's going to line up for Wednesday. And that one could bring a more significant accumulation. So we're still into this pattern of being on the storm track here. There's that shot of energy coming through the Niagara region here. Mostly rain, a little heavier at times, and then kind of changing over to that mix. We get into some wet flurries or even some freezing drizzle lingering, especially with the lake and the lake effect, but those winds will be easing up as we go through the night into tomorrow, so that will begin to improve things. Still some lake effect, though, coming off of Lake Huron to watch for. So wet flurries not out of the question, even into the city, although the best chance for that is going to be through the morning hours and also that morning fog. Watch out for that lingering through the overnight. There it is as we go into Saturday. Yeah, some sunny breaks trying to develop, but will they be too late in the day for it to matter because of the sun setting? I'm going to cross my fingers that we see a few snowfall potential, a few centimeters, especially north of the city and more significant east because it will linger longer. Our overnight temperatures around 0 and then 1 degree for tomorrow. Let's hope for that on Saturday, shall we?
We shall. Thanks so much, Colette. Finally tonight, sad news from the world of music. Legendary singer-songwriter and guitarist David Crosby has died at the age of 81.
As she turned her gaze.
Crosby's wife released a statement saying he died after a lengthy illness. He was a founding member of two of the biggest and most influential bands in the 1960s and 70s that would define an era of folk rock music, the Byrds and Crosby, Stills and Nash, which later became a foursome when Canadian musician Neil Young joined. The Grammy Award-winning artist was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame twice for his work. And that is our show for you tonight. Thank you so much for watching. Maribel Taruk has your next local newscast tomorrow at 6. I will see you back here tomorrow night at 11. Have a great night, everyone.